One of the biggest problems with beginner drivers is that they focus so much on one single thing that they don't see anything else. Just like if they had something covering the whole vehicle with just a cutout at the spot where they're looking. They're not getting the big picture, therefore they can't orient themselves properly in the context of things. Getting the big picture in life in general means to stop focusing too much on individual details so that you can get a better global idea of what you need to do. Example, someone tells you, meet me at Hansick College. You don't know where it is, so you look it up on a map. Now imagine that you're zoomed in so much that you can see the college completely, but you have no context of where it is in relation to other places around it. You're still not getting an idea of where it is. Now if you zoom out, now you have context. Okay, I see. It's next to Claude Robillard Sports Center, 2 blocks north of Highway 40, a few blocks to the east of that park where I used to play baseball, and so on. That's getting the big picture. So it's the same thing in driving. If you're looking too close in front of you or staring at something, you're seeing that particular spot very clearly, but you're not seeing whatever's around it. By looking far and wide and keeping your eyes moving, constantly scanning everything that requires your attention, your brain will calculate where everything is in relation to everything else and send the appropriate controls to your limbs to guide you where you need to be. When driving erratically, beginners will often have the excuse that it's because they don't know the road they're driving on. Then my question to them is, are you going to be driving exclusively on roads that you know all your life? You don't need to know this road, or that road, or any other road for that matter. You need to analyze them constantly. Look at the big picture. Most of the time, they're only focusing on a fraction of what's in their visual field, either straight in front or staring at what scares them. The key words here are visual exploration. In one of my earliest videos, I talked about how you can use reflections on parked vehicles to see if there are pedestrians approaching on the sidewalk. You can use that with moving vehicles too. If you're on a street where there are a lot of shop windows, like commercial streets for example, you can watch for reflections on them to know if there are vehicles approaching. You can also use them when parking to check the distance between you and the other parked vehicles. It makes it easier than judging the distance from inside the car. Now, I often say in my videos that there are 3 types of people for whom starting to drive should be a lot easier. Cyclists, people who are into sports, and people who play video games. And when I say this to people, the reaction I usually get is, what the hell is this guy talking about? So let me explain why. But basically, the main reasons for this are visual exploration and hand-eye coordination. When driving, we're constantly analyzing and reacting to what we see. The light is green, this guy is getting a bit too close in my lane, there's a pedestrian about to cross here, a cyclist behind the car, I check my mirrors once in a while, and so on. And it's the same thing with the following activities. A cyclist rides a vehicle that uses public roads. Cyclists face most of the same situations as motorists do. They're constantly scanning what's in their visual field and reacting to it, judging distances between vehicles and obstacles, reacting to traffic signs. They understand the concept of braking before turning whenever needed, and so on. The only thing that's different, it's the vehicle itself. On a car, you brake with your foot. On a bike, you brake with your hands. On a car, you have a steering wheel to steer you. On a bike, you have handlebars. But the principles are exactly the same. So the vision, the reflexes, the analyzing, and so on, that's already pretty well developed in cyclists. That also goes for people that ride any kind of vehicle in traffic, like motorcycles, scooters and mopeds, even sometimes skateboards, rollerblades, go-peds, and so on. In other words, people that are involved in traffic and not only on sidewalks. People who are into sports, especially team sports. When you play a team sport, like hockey for example, you need to be aware of where the puck is located. Then if you get it, you have to be aware of where your teammates are located, your opponents, all this while keeping in mind where the goal is located, and so on. In essence, you're reading the play and you're keeping all that in the back of your mind. You're getting the big picture. And video games, well, it's essentially the same as the previous one, but instead of having it happen in reality, you see it on a screen. You read the play and react accordingly. And it doesn't need to be driving games that you play with the steering wheel and pedals either. It could be any game that requires you to both make decisions and react quickly. Simulators, which are basically glorified video games, are used for practice by airline pilots and race car drivers. Some driving schools even have some of these, but very few of them since these things are very expensive. So if you do or have done one or more of these things, your brain should already be better conditioned to the spatial perception and hand-eye coordination needed for driving. If you don't do or never did any of these things, don't worry, you can still become a good driver, but it could take a bit more time. But at least, now you have an excuse to buy yourself a new bike or game console. Actually, if you can afford it, a virtual reality set is even better. Virtual reality, or VR, is used by some therapists to treat phobias like arachnophobia, the fear of spiders, acrophobia, the fear of heights, and many other issues. In those situations, even though we know what we're seeing is not real, our brain is still tricked into feeling that it is real. I actually believe VR will become a major tool in teaching driving in a not so distant future, maybe when it becomes more affordable. In the meantime, there are a few VR driving games, so that could help in overcoming your fear of driving if that's the case. And don't forget about visualization, it helps too. Visualize yourself in different situations and feel how you'd react to them, especially stressful situations. In the next video, more view blockers. So stay tuned and see you soon.